Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes weekend time schedule. U.S. must wield power to curb Israel's revenge instinct, end Palestinian suffering. Chainsaw-wielding TikTok star leads polls in Argentina. The mission sounded impossible, make ambulances fly. Amazon joins Web Summit defection following Israel comments. Weekend time schedule. Associated Press. An overview of the upcoming sports events for October 21st and 22nd includes MLB, MLS, NHL, and college football games, as well as golf, tennis, and auto racing events. Some notable matchups include the NL Championship Series, number 2 Michigan vs Michigan St in college football, and the Atlanta Falcons vs Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. U.S. must wield power to curb Israel's revenge instinct, end Palestinian suffering. South China Morning Post. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East has the potential to make the world an even more dangerous place, and there can be no winners in this situation, according to Chandran Nair, founder of the Global Institute for Tomorrow. Nair argues that Western politicians, who have little understanding of the region and its issues, should not be inciting war. He believes that the conflict in the Middle East is similar to previous conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, where occupation and repression led to resistance and catastrophic outcomes. Nair suggests that the U.S., as a global power with a special relationship with Israel, is in a position to change the trajectory of the conflict and should call for an immediate ceasefire and a global conference led by the United Nations. He argues that the U.S. should use its economic and military power to restrain the use of military power for revenge and to protect the weak and victims of violence. Nair concludes that the responsibility of great power is to resist the temptation to exercise it and instead use it to draw on the course of history towards coexistence and peace. Chainsaw-wielding TikTok star leads polls in Argentina. BBC. Argentina is set to hold an open presidential election on Sunday, with economist and pundit Javier Milei emerging as the frontrunner. Milei aims to introduce the US dollar as the country's official currency and blow up the central bank in a bid to tackle Argentina's rampant inflation. The far-right candidate, compared by some to former US President Donald Trump, has used an army of TikTok influencers to promote his campaign. While Milei has been criticized for his controversial views, many Argentinians see him as an outsider who can bring much-needed change to the country. The mission sounded impossible, make ambulances fly. Wall Street Journal. A team of people worked around the clock to deliver 17 ambulances from the U.S. to Israel in less than a week, following the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. The ambulances were urgently required after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7. Normally the ambulances would be shipped by ocean freighter, but the situation required a much faster solution. The ambulances were donated by Americans and converted to Israeli specifications in Indiana. They were then driven to New York on flatbeds and flown to Israel. The operation cost around $1 million, which was approximately 10 times the cost of shipping the vehicles. The rapid delivery also required the team to navigate through international shipping bureaucracy to ensure the ambulances were cleared while still in the air, so they could be on the road as soon as they arrived in Israel. A second air train is being planned at present. Amazon joins Web Summit defection following Israel comments. Bloomberg. Amazon has confirmed that it will not participate in the upcoming Web Summit technology conference in Europe after the event's leader made controversial comments about Israel. Other companies that have pulled out of the conference include Intel, Siemens, Google's parent company Alphabet, and Meta Platforms. The cancellations came after the head of Web Summit criticized Western support for Israel on social media. In response, a group of Israeli investors called for a boycott of the event. Courtney praises $3.4 billion presidential request to boost submarine production. Yahoo! President Joe Biden has requested $3.4 billion in funding to strengthen the U.S. Navy's submarine fleet and industrial base. The funding request, which is part of a larger national security package, includes nearly $2.5 billion to increase submarine production rates and $840 million for improvements to the Navy's public shipyards. The funds will also support the AUKUS agreement, which involves the delivery of U.S.-built submarines to Australia. The request brings the total amount committed to submarine force augmentation since 2017 to $8.7 billion through fiscal year 2028. Not all in China's military view Taiwan, the West as primary threat. Al Jazeera. Chinese military personnel have differing views on the West and potential adversaries, according to relatives and friends of members of China's armed forces. While the Chinese Communist Party has committed to unifying Taiwan with mainland China and has been increasingly conducting military drills around the self-ruled island, not all members of the military share the same concerns about Taiwan or the West. Some members of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, PLA, disagree with casting the West as Beijing's foremost enemy and believe that the Chinese military would not win in a conflict with the U.S. Chinese society has seen a rise in nationalism and anti-Western sentiment in recent years, with Western companies facing new government restrictions and the public growing more suspicious of foreign entities. However, not all military personnel hold hostile views towards Taiwan or Western countries. Some believe that a closer relationship with the West would benefit China's military and contribute to its modernization. These differing views have prompted Chinese leader Xi Jinping to initiate indoctrination campaigns to ensure military personnel align with the central leadership. North Korea condemns U.S. for supplying long-range missiles to Ukraine. Reuters. North Korea has criticized the U.S. for supplying Ukraine with long-range ballistic missiles known as ATOMs, warning that any strike on Russia with them will only prolong the war and hinder peace efforts. Ukraine recently used the U.S.-supplied Army tactical missile system, ATOMs, to inflict heavy damage on 2 airfields in Russian-occupied areas. North Korea's ambassador to Russia stated that any strike on Russia, a nuclear power, would not help bring an early end to the Ukrainian situation or promote peaceful settlement. The U.S. has accused North Korea of providing Russia with a shipment of weapons, expressing concerns about the expanded military relationship between the two countries. The normalcy candidate. Yahoo! I don't like to criticize anyone for doing the right thing. Explosions rock Kryvyi Rih for second time this evening. Yahoo! The Ukrainian Air Force issued an air raid warning in several regions of Ukraine, including Kryvyi Rih, on the evening of October 20. Local authorities reported an explosion in the city. The air raid warning lasted almost an hour. There were no casualties reported as a result of the missile and drone strikes in Kryvyi Rih. Russian forces had targeted suburbs in the city earlier in the evening, killing 1 person. Hello, viewers. I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world. Let's dive into the latest news. First up, we have an overview of the upcoming sports events for the weekend. From MLB to college football, golf to auto racing, there's something for every sports fan out there. So, get your popcorn ready and enjoy the action-packed weekend. Next, we turn our attention to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Chandran Nair, founder of the Global Institute for Tomorrow, argues that Western politicians should not be inciting war in the region. He believes that the U.S., as a global power with a special relationship with Israel, has the responsibility to curb Israel's revenge instinct and end Palestinian suffering. Nair suggests an immediate ceasefire and a global conference led by the United Nations. It's time for the U.S. to use its power for peace. In Argentina, the presidential election is heating up with economist Javier Milei taking the lead. Milei, compared to former U.S. President Donald Trump, aims to introduce the U.S. dollar as the country's official currency and bring much-needed change to Argentina. Love him or hate him, Milei has used TikTok influencers to promote his campaign. Who knew chainsaw-wielding TikTok stars could lead the polls? Now, let's talk about a mission that sounded impossible. After the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust, a team worked tirelessly to deliver 17 ambulances from the U.S. to Israel in less than a week. These ambulances were urgently needed after Hamas attacked Israel. The operation cost around $1 million, but the team managed to navigate through international shipping bureaucracy and ensure the ambulances were on the road as soon as they arrived in Israel. Talk about going above and beyond. In the tech world, Amazon has decided to join the Web Summit defection after controversial comments were made about Israel by the event's leader. Other companies like Intel, Siemens, Google, and Meta Platforms have also pulled out of the conference. It seems that actions have consequences, even in the tech industry. President Joe Biden is requesting $3.4 billion in funding to strengthen the U.S. Navy's submarine fleet and industrial base. This funding will support the AUKUS agreement and increase submarine production rates. The request shows a commitment to national security and modernizing the military. Let's hope these submarines stay in the water and off the internet. Moving on to China, not all members of the Chinese military view Taiwan and the West as the primary threat. While the Chinese Communist Party is committed to unifying Taiwan, some members of the military believe that a closer relationship with the West would benefit China's military and contribute to its modernization. It seems there are differing views within the ranks. North Korea has criticized the U.S. for supplying Ukraine with long-range ballistic missiles, warning that any strike on Russia will only prolong the war and hinder peace efforts. It's a dangerous game of geopolitical chess, with each move having far-reaching consequences. Let's hope cooler heads prevail. Lastly, explosions have rocked Kryvyi Rih in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force issued an air raid warning, and there were reports of missile and drone strikes in the city. The situation is tense, and we hope for a swift resolution to the conflict. That's all for today's news. Remember, the world is full of surprises, both good and bad. Stay tuned for more updates from the 6 Degrees world. And now, it's time to hear from you, my dear viewers. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any questions or opinions? Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.